Almost exactly 4 years ago, I uploaded this video to LinkedIn. In the video, I announced that I'm leaving my traditional law firm career to become a self-employed lawyer. And to be honest, I was really nervous to take that step, but I was also really excited. I was looking forward to taking control of my own time, of being able to
Did it work?
choose when, where, how much, and with whom to work. I was looking forward to becoming my own boss. But lately, I've been reflecting over these past 4 years, and I've asked myself, what type of boss have I actually been to myself? Because despite my initial vision of a flexible work life, I found myself following a surprisingly traditional work schedule. I've worked at least Monday through Friday, at least 8 hours per day. Also, I've noticed that as my own boss, I've been quite hard on myself. Whenever I have veered off this standard work schedule, I've given myself both criticism and guilt. So I decided to look into where did my inner boss get its work ethic from?
To be fair, especially as a guy, you're just told that, work. That's pretty much it. You probably heard it 10,000 times by the time you were 18.
And here's what I learned. We humans have been around for approximately 300,000 years. Here's a timeline of that period. And for a majority of this time, we humans have lived as hunter-gatherers. And while we cannot know for sure, anthropological studies indicate that as hunter-gatherers, we humans have had what the German historian Max Weber refers to as a traditional work ethic. Under a traditional work ethic, work is something that you need to do in order to survive, but it's also something that you stop doing once you have enough. In other words, under a traditional work ethic, you hunt and gather the food you need, or you earn the money you need, and then you stop working. 2,300 years ago, the
I'm not sure I would call it ethic though, but fair enough.
ancient Greek philosopher Aristotle exemplified this traditional work ethic when he argued that working for money is useful merely as a means to something else, and that the true purpose of human life is eudaimonia, which could mean to contemplate one's place in the universe.
No, it's about dying with the most money. Aristotle, you dummy. But also, he was pretty, well, I guess slaves worked for him, but also he was pretty productive. I can tell from his books. And also, he was an instructor. So, you can argue that he did not call work as what he did not like. So, what he enjoyed, which is fair enough.
The ancient Romans, they shared this traditional work ethic. The Latin word for business, negotium, literally means not enjoyable.
Oh.
To the educated classes in ancient Rome, most paid work was considered humiliating.
Yeah. Well, in the past, between slavery and wage slavery, there wasn't much difference. Yeah. I guess the only difference was that you were not bought. But still, you got paid the bare minimum, and it is not what you want to see. So what you ideally would want is that you capture the value of your labor. You work, let's say, like a farm. You work your farm, and comes harvest, you reap what you sow, essentially. But that's not really how it works in our society.
The traditional work ethic was later embraced in a slightly modified version, also by the Catholic Church, with Thomas Aquinas arguing in the 13th century that work is a duty. It's necessary to meet the needs of family and community.
Yeah, but it was like a priest. He just dicked around all day. No.
But not much more. But in the 1500s, a massive paradigm shift started taking place. A shift that affects the way you live your life today and how I act as a boss to myself. In the 1500s, the Protestant reformers Martin Luther and John Calvin argued that human beings shouldn't live idly or solely engage in spiritual contemplation within monastic life. Instead, Luther and Calvin introduced the idea that everyone has a personal calling. And to honor God, people should work hard towards this calling. In his famous
Yeah, but did they do that, or were they just talkers?
book, The Protestant Ethic and the Spirit of Capitalism, Max Weber explains how this
Okay.
Protestant reform marked the beginning of something new, the Protestant work ethic. Under this Protestant work ethic, work
Was it really the start of that?
was no longer merely a means to an end, but served its own purpose. Through work, you fulfill your life's calling. Therefore, you don't stop working just because you have the money you need. Instead, you have to keep grinding. Through this
Yes. Those who die with the most toys win.
reform, the philosopher Erich Fromm argues that man developed an obsessional craving to work, which had been lacking in a free man before that period. This was obviously a monumental shift.
It's called capitalism. You job or die,
But it didn't happen overnight.
or slave or die.
Many workers held on to a traditional work ethic, and they stopped working once they had enough money to buy what they needed. As late as 1694, a businessman complained that when food prices are low and workers therefore don't need that much money, workers refuse to work more than 2 hours a week.
Oh yeah, 2 hours. Possibly that one didn't work either. So this is essentially what you see in our current system, that they try to create scarcity. Like, you can have a house, the food is expensive, everything is expensive, you gotta pay just thousands for no reason per year. Like, okay, what is this? This is just to keep the wheels turning.
Over time, however, the Protestant values of working hard towards a calling, irrespective of whether you already have what you need, were secularized and internalized by almost everyone. Today, you can find examples of this work ethic basically everywhere, sometimes explicitly, like when Oprah Winfrey asserts that each of us has a personal calling and that we need to work hard to fulfill this calling if we want to become successful.
Everybody has a calling.
Grift! I'm really good at spotting grifts.
And your real job in life is to figure out as soon as possible
I know. My calling is to be an arsonist. I was really putting it off. I thought like maybe I shouldn't do it.
what that is, who you were meant to
No, I already know.
be, and begin to honor that.
But this
You telling me to be an arsonist? I guess I have no choice.
Protestant work ethic doesn't just make us work hard, it has also been leveraged by corporations to make us consume more, which in turn forces us to work more. As leadership guru Simon Sinek famously
Yeah, that's another way. They create the problem and sell you on it, and ideally it's gonna be endless.
explained, the best way to get people to buy more overpriced gadgets is to shut up about the economic necessity of a product or service, and instead construct a story of how this product fits into the consumer's own calling.
What's your purpose? What's your cause? What's your belief? People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do.
Not a grift. I'm not sure. I guess I'm just seeing a part of it. But you would just sell to their emotions and like rationalize it as much as they needed. Assuming. Essentially you tell them whatever they want to hear.
Why you do it. This explains why every single person in this room is perfectly comfortable buying a computer from Apple, but we're also perfectly comfortable buying an MP3 player from Apple, or a phone from Apple, or a DVR from Apple.
But perhaps most clearly, our work ethic is evident in politics.
And salespeople like to overcomplicate things. Some of them like to imagine, well, first of all, they're kind of selling themselves. Also, they don't tend to present themselves as someone who's like just screwing over the customers, which they might be, right? It is certainly possible that they are just doing the customer a solid, but let's be honest here. They're mostly just convincing the customer to buy something that they don't need.
Politics, where creating, protecting, glorifying jobs is central to all political parties. The right-wing parties want to have more private sector jobs. The left-wing parties want to have more public sector jobs. The Green parties want sustainable jobs, and the nationalist parties, they want domestic jobs.
This is terrible. It's not what... Gotta go back to Rome. Like, jobs is not what you want to see. But people just working for themselves, right? Like, in Rome, jobs were disrespected. It was humiliating. But, you know, work your farm, respect. You know, you work as a tailor, respect, right? You care about it because like you reap what you sow. But in a job setting, you are basically paid as little as possible. And they capture as much as possible. And the more you work this, the worse society gets. That's it. So theoretically jobs could be okay if you're not forced into it and you're basically paid what you're worth. But that is not how jobs work. But I don't want to see a society where like it's like more and more and more jobs. Yeah.
Jobs.
When I mentioned in the beginning of this video that Aristotle saw paid work as less valuable and that the true purpose of life was eudaimonia, flourishing, I'm sure that some of you sneer. Eudaimonia, flourishing.
I guess you can interpret eudaimonia as, I guess, egoism? Yeah, I think, well, it didn't put it in those terms, but essentially, well, it also wouldn't phrase it as such, but like, essentially just trying to live a good life.
I'm sure that some of you sneer that it was easy for Aristotle to say that since he had slaves to do all the actual work. I hear you on that. But here's the thing. Today, we have the equivalent of billions of slaves working for us. They're called machines, artificial fertilizer, electricity, computers, the list goes on. But instead of figuring out how we can use this technology to achieve the eudaimonia Aristotle talked about, our society seems to be doubling down on the Protestant work ethic. As author and sociologist Roland
And they don't have a choice. This, if anything, this tells you that for 300,000 years, human nature was a certain thing. And if you look at those Vietnamese, they oftentimes have this traditional work ethic. Only those don't tend to have the Protestant work ethic who are possibly just obsessed with getting more and more power. Maybe they're just gonna do a speedrun of dying with the most money. But also, mostly those who have no choice. We just work them to death for personal gain. Some are really duped, but more than ever, we live in a society, in contrast to like older societies, where like, you know, some peasant guy, you know, like, okay, you know, I'm gonna work like, you know, 2 hours a week. Like, there's nothing else to do. I'm just gonna chill out. And like, yeah, you might have to work like more than 40 hours, or maybe like 2 jobs. For what? And can't even afford a house. So yeah, we live in a very strange society.
Roland Paulsen has observed, Society's message is clear already when you start school. Only by enduring the tedium of a scheduled life can you alleviate the worry for your economy and status.
Yeah, it's very normalized. And people say like jobs, so normalized.
That's the message my inner boss has internalized, but I believe this Protestant work ethic isn't serving me anymore. And I believe maybe it isn't serving our society either. So maybe we should replace it with something better.
You don't have a choice. Are you suggesting a societal overhaul? Because you can look at this as a system issue.
My name is Andres Acevedo and this is The Market Exit. And I was inspired to make this video based on two